Good morning, everybody. I'm Howard Reese, a SCORE volunteer, and we'll be starting our presentation today in about a minute or so. So thanks for joining us, and just let's wait for a few more people to join in. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm Howard Reese, a SCORE volunteer. We're expecting a few more people to join in, but we want to keep you all on schedule. So Enette, we can start with the introduction and take it from here. Very brief introduction to SCORE. We are a national organization, 364 chapters, about 13,000 volunteers, and our goal is really to foster a vibrant small business environment through mentoring and education. We provide confidential business meetings, webinars like the one you're about to participate in today, and have online extensive educational resources through the SCORE website. We work with startups all the way up to established businesses. All of the services provided are free. Our volunteers come from a wide range of industries. Most of us have, been there and done that, either running a small business or being very responsible in the success of a small business. Next page is going to have some contact information, and you're welcome to follow up with us through social media. I'm with the Rockland County chapter, but today we're coordinating this webinar with the 6 chapters throughout the Hudson Valley. I'll just pause for a second. So if anyone wants to write down a phone number or an email address, they're all on the screen. Enette, let's go to the next slide. Just talking about how the webinar is going to work. Everybody is going to be muted during the presentation. We're going to ask you to provide questions using the Q&A button, not the chat button. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible, mostly at the end of the webinar, and any questions that remain will be answered in follow-up email after the session. Our presenter today, I'm happy to introduce you to Enette Fernandez. She's an information security assessment specialist in the medical device industry, and also is the owner of her own small business. And we're going to be distributing the slides. You can go through more of a background, but I really want to get you on to the star of the show. So Enette, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Howard. So as you can see from my background, security, especially for small business, is very important to me. Unfortunately, I've had, friends and family members, some of also who are small business owners, been affected by, identity theft or having, let's say their social media accounts being hacked. So for me, I take this area very, very seriously. And I hope that by the end of this session, you at least come away with some practical tips on how to improve your security posture, or at least just start to think about how can I, or what can I do to improve my security posture. So this presentation, I'm going to go over the following areas: password management, third-party access controls, protecting your credit, phishing, data storage availability, and data encryption. Obviously, within the cybersecurity space, there's a lot of domains and subdomains. So, we would need a lot more webinars than just today to go over them. But if there's another area that, interests you, you can feel free to follow up with me after this session to go over that. So I thought it would be a great way for you, that button too quickly, to start the webinar by introducing Daniel. And I just want you, he's a fellow small business owner, and I just want you to see what happened to him.
For weeks because of it. That's when he knew his Better Call Bacon.
Imagine seeing a video of you, but it's not you. And then you realize you've lost control of your Instagram account and can't stop the imposter from posting as you.
It's crazy.
That's Daniel Higgins' reaction when he saw this.
What's poppin', guys? I just invested $300 into Bitcoin and got $10,000 back. You gotta try it.
What's crazy is that's him, but those words never came out of his mouth. It looks like you. It's your voice.
Yeah, you got it spot on. I just invested $300 into Bitcoin and got $10,000 back.
An imposter took over Daniel's Instagram account a few weeks ago, posted this deepfake video, and started soliciting his followers to buy Bitcoin.
It's so annoying to have it up on my page for thousands of people to see.
As a music producer who goes by D. Higgs, Daniel relies on Instagram to network.
I have all my links on my page, so it's kind of like the main source where everyone can go to see my music and my art.
So Instagram is extremely important.
I would say it's the most important in terms of social media that I use.
But his thousands of followers is likely what made Daniel a target for the hacker.
See, I would never say these things.
You may have heard about deepfakes, a video edited using an algorithm to replace the person in the original video with someone else in a way that makes it look real. Some, using public figures, have gone viral.
Whoever controls the data controls the future.
But as Daniel's story shows, regular people can be targeted too. Just look at this video again.
What's poppin', guys? I just invested $300 into Bitcoin and got $10,000 back. You gotta try it.
When something like this happens, Facebook, which owns Instagram, asks users to alert them online. Daniel says he did this, even provided proof of his identity. And Instagram tried to send him a new password, but the imposter had thought of that too and had already changed the email address associated with the D. Higgs account.
All the new passwords were going to his email instead of mine.
Fed up, Daniel turned to Better Call Bacon for help. I've called and emailed every contact I could find at Instagram and Facebook. After a week of silence, finally, a spokesperson indicated this is being looked into. Meanwhile, Daniel is forced to watch from the sidelines as some crook pretends to be him, inundating his followers with fake posts about Bitcoin.
So I'll stop it there. And all I gotta say is, poor Daniel. I feel for him. I'm sure many small business owners, including myself, have a social media presence, and just having a social media presence obviously takes a lot of hard work. So for Daniel to have to basically restart from the beginning, not being able to even have obviously the resources, right, as a small business owner, to have like your own PR team, to even put out any kind of communication, is going to be really difficult for him to get his account back, as well as, in some ways get the trust back of his followers, right? Because they won't know who's who, right? So when we look at Daniel's situation, even though, yes, we feel bad for him, the biggest thing that we can learn is what can I possibly do so that way that doesn't happen to me as well. So we can use Daniel's experience as a learning experience for us as small business owners. Because when these hacks happened, whether it's a social media account, whether it's your identity theft, they will take time to repair, if you can repair it. They will obviously impact your income, which as a small business owner, you're already stretched, right? You're not like a huge company like Target, and of course your reputation. You're just building your reputation out. And so now you have to restart from the beginning. And one thing that, before I go into how this hack could have been prevented or at least stopped in its track, is that as we go through the presentation, just think about having a layered defense strategy. So when I say that, I just mean, what can we do, or what ways can we pretty much apply to either detect, minimize, or fully prevent an attack from happening. There's not going to be a single tool that's going to prevent all attacks from happening, because there's so many ways for people to obtain your information, right? So the first point or topic that I want to discuss is password management. So in Daniel's case, obviously I don't know his password, but as just a general best practices, passwords tend to be very easy to hack. Just because they are easy to hack doesn't mean that you want to make it easier for someone to hack into your account. So what you can do for your password is make sure that it is very complex. So what does that mean? It should be 12 characters or more. The longer it is, the better. It should have a combination of uppercase, lowercase, numbers, symbols. If you have words inside of it, right, that's going to make it very easy, because there's so many programs out there that specialize in brute forcing, for passwords. So the easier they're able to read and identify that it is a word that exists in the dictionary or it's someone's name, the easier it is to hack. And what I've included on here as well is, you can see there is image right here, how safe is your password? And I included this in here because I feel that sometimes when we talk about, okay, let's just make the password complex, people don't really explain why that's important. And this graph does a nice job at explaining or showing how easy it is to hack into your password, to find out what it is. So even if you have 8 number of characters but you only have lowercase, if I run a very easy off the market program, I can find out very easily, right? It's not until you get to like this layer, the green, right, and even the yellow, that you can say, okay, it's going to take somebody quite some time to figure out what my password is. So take some time to really think about, okay, what are my passwords today? And if you need to update them, then please update them. And of course, don't reuse the same password across different accounts, because guess what? In Daniel's case, if they already have that password and obviously his email address, if he has that same password across a different account, well, what's stopping the person from trying to, see if they can access other accounts, right? And then obviously don't share your passwords. I see this honestly all the time, especially with friends and family. And while you love them, you can just enter in the password. They don't need to know your password, because unfortunately, when you give their password, your security, you're inheriting risks, because then now they have that piece of information and they may or may not, take care of not letting people know what it is, etc. So the second part about password management is that, as I said before, passwords can be weak even if they're complex, right? So apply that multi-layer defense strategy. What does that mean? Always activate multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication, and I'm sure most of you may have it in some accounts, maybe not all accounts, but if it's available, definitely enable it, because it provides the second verification, basically saying, I am Jeanette, by having something physical or that only you would know or have in your possession. And typically multi-factor authentication will either send a code to your cell phone number or your email address. So in Daniel's case, if he would have had multi-factor authentication, he would have received something very similar to that second image I have over here, saying, hey, we've noticed a new login from a new device or new, IP address. Is this you? He would have received a code, probably in his email, And so at that point in time, he would have been able to notice that someone is trying to log into my account. At that point in time, he would have had sufficient time to update his password, because obviously they know his password. And now he only has that code, so he's not going to share it, so they won't be able to get in. And so that's how you stop that type of attack from happening, right? And then the last thing a lot of people ask me is, oh my God, passwords. I have so many of them. How do I keep track of them? Especially if they're like long and complex, right? Is you leverage a password manager app. There are many free ones. Some are paid service, but honestly, there's so many free ones. So if you have, your phone, Android, you can search for that on Google Play or the App Store if you have an iPhone, and you just find one, that works for you. If you want, search for that name before, just to see some of the reviews and some of the pros and cons. There's always a lot of information about these password manager apps, but I think they're great because they provide an organized way for you to keep all your complex passwords and accounts in one location. It is encrypted as well. So it's definitely something that everyone should have at this point in time. Okay. So the second case study I have is around third-party access controls. So I want you to think about the scenario and what you would suggest, right? So Seven of Bloom has an Amazon seller's account, and I've decided to hire a freelancer from Fiverr to update my listing. So basically Fiverr, in case for those that don't know, it's just a freelance website similar to Upwork, etc. How should I proceed in providing the freelancer access to the account in the most secure manner? Should I just give that freelancer my email and password so they can, make the updates? Is that the most secure manner in doing that? Or does that just open me up for risk that they can just do whatever they want in there and possibly take all my information and lock me out? So the best practice in this case is to give that freelancer the minimum permissions needed for them to do their jobs. So some people may know this, some people may not. A lot of small business, you may use one or a combination of one of these platforms, but they do have dedicated user permissions page. And what does that mean? It basically means that you're able to provide others roles. So that way they can access your account in a limited way. So similar for those that are still working and, have their small business on the side, when you have your role is limited to, your department and what you do. So basically Facebook Business Manager, Amazon, has a particular user permissions, and there you will be able to provide, what someone can view, edit, etc. Now, each of these platforms, how they've set up their user permissions page is a little bit different. Some are a little bit more advanced than others. Some are still kind of getting there. But I just bring this up because I feel like a lot of people don't do this. They just automatically give, especially a lot of freelancers, their email and just a password. And so I wanted you guys to be aware of this. And what does this look like, particularly for Amazon sellers page? It just pretty much lists out all of the, functions that the individual would be able to do. And you can provide whether you don't want them to have that, they can view it, they can view and edit, or you can provide them full administrative access. And obviously the way it works is that if they don't have admin access or view or edit, and let's just say they try to go to your billing page and they don't have access to that, they're just going to get a simple message saying you don't have permissions to view this page, which is great. And you can always update this as necessary until they finish their work. The key here is try to minimize as much risk by, if possible, by limiting, access as needed. All right, so the third case study is around protecting yourself. So let's see what happens here. So my personally identified information, PII. So PII, think about it as like your name, your gender, your address, social security number, etc. Things that could identify me, has been compromised. The hacker has decided they want to use my information to take out personal loan. How nice of them. So what tool could I use to stop the hacker at this point? So the best practice here is actually something that needs to happen before this occurs, which is freezing your credit. Freezing your credit is free to do. You can do it with any of the bureaus. And basically what it does is that you're limited to obtaining any additional credit without providing a PIN or unfreezing your credit. And so in this particular situation, if the hacker, whether they did it online, I highly doubt they would do it in person, but then basically they would say, hey, this account is frozen, you have to unfreeze it. And guess what? They would have to know your PIN number associated with this credit freeze. And so it's another layer to prevent someone from, opening up credit in your name. And so the reason why I bring this up is because let's think about the alternative, right? So let's just say they were able to open up a loan, personal loan using your name. Then guess what? Now you probably won't know until maybe a month later or so, whenever the credit, it's on your credit, right? And by then it's way too late, right? So now you have to deal with identity theft. And you have to now show that wasn't really you. You have to spend time, potentially money, on addressing the situation. And you're a small business owner. We don't have time. I don't have time to be dealing with things. You want to focus on growing your business because your resources are limited. So if you do things that are preventative in nature, this is free, the better off you will be versus the alternative that now you're stuck in the situation, and these situations they don't get fixed, in a one-day situation. And of course, you don't want to put yourself in a position that potentially this happens and you want to take out an actual business loan for your business, and you're kind of stuck in this situation. So now we go into phishing attempts. So what is phishing? I kind of want to go over the definition of that. So phishing are emails that are disguised as a trusted person or company. They will typically have a link that, when selected, will most likely than not, ask you for your username and password. They may include an attachment. And if you open up, that attachment, it may lead to some malicious software being downloaded into your computer, etc. I'm sure you guys have seen some. They're getting pretty good at trying to confuse people. So what are the characteristics of phishing emails? So typically there's always like a sense of urgency. It's like, oh, the CEO wants you to, approve these, vendor invoices, etc. by tomorrow or today or 2 minutes from now. There's typically some level of some spelling mistakes or unfamiliar greeting. It's the CEO and he's like, hey, hi, how are you doing? I don't think that's the CEO, right? Inconsistencies in email addresses. Typically, I do like to see that it is from wherever it's supposedly from. And you can preview the link if there is a link. You can always preview the link by putting your mouse pointer over the link, so that way you can see if, for instance, if you're getting something from Amazon, it should say Amazon.com, not some gibberish weird link, because that's kind of telling you this is going somewhere else, right? Also, if it does have an attachment and you see like it's something pretty much like unfamiliar, like a .zip file or .exe file, then I would always stay away from those. And of course, if it's asking you to put in your login details, those are always the ones that I am very careful about. Instead of just clicking on links, putting in your information, just always go straight to the source, right? Just log into your account regularly. And then that way you'll be able to see, okay, if they're talking about that somebody needs something quickly, you'll be able to see a message within your account saying the same thing. And I just added a little point in there about apply some of these like tips to determine if your friend's account has been hacked, because right now a lot of accounts are getting hacked because of the, some of the same reasons we've been talking about. And so a lot of people are leveraging, they look at your friends list, right, your family's list, and then they start messaging or sending attachments to you. And then because you think is your friend or your family member, you just click on it, and so just use that same kind of concept of, why are you asking me about a code? Yeah, I know you're like my cousin or my best friend, but that's kind of weird, right? Why are you just sending me this random attachment with this file? Like, you never do that. So just be wary of that type of stuff, because they're usually kind of the same kind of style, whether it's email, social media accounts, to kind of trick you into providing information at that point in time, because you're not really thinking, right? So I just wanted to give you a real life example. So this came from Amazon. Of course, this happened during like the Christmas, time, because that's where they love to get you. And so here you can see forward automatic email from your account information required to update. Like, that's not even like correct. Okay. Notice, I've never seen Amazon send me anything about notices, right? That's kind of weird. Here, even though it says account support at amazon.com, you're like, okay, look what's the real. What is this? Gibberish. Then no reply account. That doesn't make any sense. But of course, the kicker is, please complete the verification in 24 hours. Email report received. Okay, if Amazon wants me to do anything, I will go into my account. Of course, I realize this is a phishing email. So what I did is actually that I sent Amazon, a copy of this email so that they have, they're aware of this. And actually, that's something that I recommend for people to do. I'm not sure if the people necessarily know, but when you do see like phishing attempts, and you know for sure, okay, this is a phishing attempt, you can always send these emails to the company. So because then they will forward that to the security team. And then the security team is aware, it makes them aware of what's going on, and they could perhaps do some filters, other things. So then that way you don't get additional phishing attempts from whoever was sending this, right? And then this was Amazon's inquiry back to me. Obviously, they're saying it's not that, which is fine. I was doing this more so just so that their security team knows. And even Amazon is saying it. If you're ever uncertain of the email, even from us, don't click on any supplied links. Instead, type our website address directly into your browser and follow the regular links into your account. So just something to think about, because they're getting very good at this. So worst case scenario, when in doubt, just go into the account. All right, so now that brings me into data storage redundancy. So here's the case study. So my laptop has been stolen. Is there anything I can do to regain my files so my business is not interrupted? Help me, guys. So typically the best practices here is a couple of things that you can do. Some of it is not so much for the redundancy, but more so from the prevention of someone else obtaining your files. So the first thing that I always suggest, and I guarantee you, any business, I don't care if it's just you, or if it's 100, 1,000, employees, is that they will always have at the very minimum 2 copies of their files in 2 different locations. Why? Because if one location goes down, you at least have the other one, and that's the minimum. So a lot of you, I'm sure, probably have like a cloud storage provider. Perhaps you want to make sure that your data is constantly being forwarded to them. And the reason why I put in like a physical hard drive, which I have, is because sometimes cloud providers, have outages. So Amazon just last month had an outage that lasted for a day, depending on the services, like a day and a half. You don't want to put yourself in a position that, oh my God, my laptop is stolen and Amazon is down. Now I have I have none of my files. I have nothing to work on, right? Versus if at least you had some of your files in, your encrypted hard drive, you can go to Best Buy, get a new laptop, whatever you need to do, FedEx, plug it in, and at least have something to work on, right? Then the other two is just other ways that, assuming, let's just say you have the 2 copies, you can remotely wipe your laptop. And I believe for cell phones as well. And there are a lot of free tools where you can set this up as well. So if you already have your copies and you know for sure, okay, this app, I'm not going to get this. So just remotely wipe your laptop. That way, even if somebody logs in, they won't be able to see anything because none of the files will be there, right? And encrypting your laptop's hard drive, again, this is also free, whether you have Windows or Mac, and it's something that usually will take just a few minutes to set up, is that in case somebody takes your laptop and, they don't want to deal with trying to find out what your password, so they're going to try to use your hard drive to access, whatever files you have in there. Well, guess what? It's encrypted. And most of the encryptions will have, the latest encrypted cipher. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to access that, information. So again, think about that multi-layer approach. Here you are making sure that you are still operational, right, to some degree, so that way you can still get work done, or provide, whatever your clients need, or whatever, depending on what business you have. But also you're preventing someone else to use other ways to get your information. Okay, so then this is the last sort of case study, I believe. So here I am going on a business trip to visit a very important client in another state. While in the airport, I decide to connect to the Wi-Fi service. How can I ensure that my data is encrypted and secure? And when I say encrypted just means that my data is unreadable. So that means that even if you were to hack, or I were to access something that I thought was a Wi-Fi service, but someone else, they wouldn't be able to read my information. So how can I ensure that happens? So you may have heard, and hopefully some of you are already using VPN, which is a virtual private network. And basically, it works by connecting, as it says here, your computer, phone to a server. So you can go online using the server's internet connection. It basically just provides a computer in the middle to keep things, simple. So then that way, everything is going through that connection, and not versus you directly connecting to that source. And the data that is being transmitted is encrypted, so it's unreadable. So VPNs are great because you can put them on your phone, you can put them on your tablets, you can put them on your laptop. It's a feature you typically enable to go on the internet. And that's the other part. Even though my case study was more around, Wi-Fi networks, honestly, if you just want more privacy, as you browse the internet, you can always enable it. It's up to you. And as I mentioned here, there are free and paid VPN providers. Like anything, the free ones just have certain limitations on them. And, if you just Google VPN providers, you're going to get quite a few providers on that. You can do your own research and obviously decide which one goes for you. But I think having a VPN network in general as an option, especially when you're connecting to Wi-Fi networks, is very good to have. And I forgot to mention when we were doing the passwords slide, if you guys go to haveibeenpawned.com and just put in your email address, you will see all the breaches that your email address has been associated with and when those breaches happen. So then that way you can identify, if the current password you're using has already been identified with a breach, because if it is, then you need to update that. I forgot to mention that. Okay, so that was the last of the case studies. And I just put this slide together as kind of just to give you guys a baseline, a very basic baseline of trying to identify your overall security posture, right? Because as I mentioned, as a small business owner, your personal life is most often not intertwined with your small business, right? Your information and all that. And obviously, the more you protect yourself, the more you're going to protect your customers. Remember, think of Daniel. So the issue with Daniel, besides the fact that yes, he got hacked and obviously that going to impact his business, is that imagine all the other followers who are going to potentially be scammed, right? So it's just go through these and just identify if you are doing this already. If you are, great. Just be honest with yourself. It's okay, and this will hopefully just give you a general baseline of how you're doing. And I've included some topics that I didn't address because, again, there's other things that are equally important as well. We just need more time to go over them. But I think this will give you just a good baseline to just think about how am I doing from a security front. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. We're going to head over to QA in 1 second. But before we do that, I just want to say, depending on the question you may ask, or if you want additional follow-up, you can feel free to contact me, afterwards with your questions, as well as, again, if you need a mentor from SCORE, they're a great resource. So I'm just putting back this slide again. So then that way you have it. So. Okay, I think we are good for Q&A.
Annette, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should feel comfortable or scared now that you've shared that, but I think that's really the purpose of today is, everybody needs to do that self-assessment.
Yes.
We've got some wonderful questions from the audience. I'll quickly introduce Bob Jamesak, who just appeared on the video, and Bob runs the Rockland chapter. But Annette, let me get into some of these questions. Some of these are really good questions. And
Yeah.
the first one is, do you recommend cybersecurity insurance for small businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way I look at it, all large businesses have cyber insurance. For small businesses, the thing that you have to keep in mind, of course, is that there is a cost to it. I don't know, you have to look at the insurance provider. But the cyber insurance is supposed to help you with breach, incident response, which is just a fancy word of saying, okay, you got breached, and they'll bring some experts to identify, where the problem is, particularly for something like ransomware. So depending on where you are in your journey, even though you are small, I think at the very minimum, what you should do is look at insurance companies that do offer it for small businesses specifically, and see what their terms and what they actually cover and help you with, and the costs, and make that assessment to see if that's right for your business, at this time.
Annette, I'm actually going to add something to that answer.
Yeah.
Having recently run a small business that was trying to do business with some very large businesses, and that became a requirement where
Okay, so there you
and
go.
again, in our field of healthcare,
Right.
healthcare providers were requesting their vendors to have cybersecurity insurance, and it's certainly something that can be negotiated, but it's something to be considered.
Exactly. Yep.
Annette, is there a difference between two-factor authentication and two-step verification, or are they the same thing?
I think that they're just being used interchangeably, the words.
How does a computer hack a password? Don't websites and apps have lockout features after so many failed login attempts?
So repeat the first part of the question, please.
How does a computer hack a password?
Well, okay, so there's several things. So when you think about, yes, so I guess to the second part. So social media, yes, when you try to log in too many accounts, too many times into your account, you may receive an email like, hey, you're logging in too many times, your account is locked out, right? And most companies, they will do that in an effort to prevent something that's called brute force hacking. And it's just basically people running programs to help identify what that password is. So while that is useful, it can only prevent so much. I don't think the sheer number of tools available that people know in order to help identify and break that password is amazing. And all it takes is just some patience, right? And that's why I'm saying, in terms of, if you make it easy for people to hack, they will just run these little programs and they will be done in one attempt. Versus if you have a very complex, account, as I said, they're probably going to have an extremely hard time to hack into it and find out, and then you'll probably get the lockout, right? Email. But that's what I'm saying. Just revise your passwords if you're not already following like the best practices at the very minimum. And then of course have multi-factor, because if you have multi-factor, you should be fine.
Another question, how can you tell if a text message is phishing when there is, when all there is some plain text and a link to click?
Yeah, that's a great question. Listen, especially banks, right? Banking texts, which I feel are like the best examples. Any single time there's a text and there's links, I go straight to my account. Banks will typically not provide links for you to access because they want to prevent, they're very well aware of phishing attempts. So they don't want you to do that. And typically for phishing accounts, like the formatting of it usually does not make any sense. Like I'm sure we have had, and I have had, I've received text messages from, accounts of banks and other organizations that I don't have accounts from. I've received, text messages saying, hey, like you said, like the Amazon, hey, I need you to verify this immediately, or here's your code to do this. You always have to keep things within context as well, right? Like, why would the bank be sending you text messages because they want you to verify something? If they want you to verify something, they'll do it in your account, or you can call them directly if you feel comfortable with that. But text messages are typically more so for reminders of something, if you have like a text notification kind of thing. But I steer away from anything regarding, any phishing accounts of text messages. And also I have been made aware that some text messages, now that you mentioned that, they're becoming so good at it that some of them, if you just open them, the person who's sending you that text messages will get an indication saying you open them. So at least you know that you are a real person, and then they will start to target you even more. So when I say about those text messages of things, of accounts that I don't have, I don't even click on them. I just delete them off my phone because of that.
I'm with you. Me too. Raquel, did you want to jump in with an answer to that?
No, I was just indicating that we were answering it live.
Okay. Another question, Enid, and
Yeah.
this is great. We've got a bunch of questions coming in. It looks like your presentation really spurred a lot of interest.
Good.
how can you prevent those phishing Amazon emails from recurring or coming into your email inbox? The spam or block features don't seem to work.
Yeah, they are very difficult to prevent because obviously they could come from many different sources, right? These are just automated kind of emails are coming through from sources all over the world. So that's why I said, like, at the very minimum, if you do identify one, just send it over to Amazon or whatever the organization is. So that way they can send it to the security team, because then they will probably be able to use some more sophisticated tools to help, filter them out, at least from that source, right? But yeah, it's difficult. There are some like spam add-ons and stuff that you can look to see if they are, effective. But it's difficult to control.
Yet there's a couple of questions asking for, product or vendor recommendations. I think we want to tread lightly with the recommendations, but one was, can you recommend an encrypted hard drive, and how often do you remember backing up?
Yeah, so the encrypted hard drive, I recommended it because it is the absolute most safest, hard drive. But if you don't want to have it encrypted, at the very minimum, just having that, information in a hard drive, so that way you can have a backup, right, is useful. Encrypted hard drives are typically very expensive overall. So that's what I'm saying, as a small business owner, you have to see like what works within your budget. Is it something you want to do right this second or not, right? So typically if you just go to Best Buy and just, search encrypted hard drive, there's only a few vendors anyways that sell encrypted hard drives versus just your general hard drives there. So just search and see which one you like, and just make sure that you get enough memory, to cover your files that you need there. So that way you're not buying another one because they are very expensive. And then in terms of backing up, for me, well, my cloud is always backed up, every single time I make a change. My hard drive is backed up every day.
Great. Again, this is a vendor question. Do you have a list of trusted VPN providers?
Yeah, so VPN providers. So I would just say, because I know we're not supposed to, recommend a particular vendor, and obviously I have no association with any of them, right? It's just, see, there's a lot of tech forums that will go over the pros and cons of each VPN, particularly the free ones, if you want to start out with that, versus going to the free ones. Although I have to tell you, even the free ones, the one that I have is only $10 a month. So it's not like something very expensive, to have for the security it provides. And there's just a host of them available. So just go to those sites and they will typically do a good job at comparing and contrasting those providers for you. So that way you can make a decision. And if you don't like one, you try a different one. Delete it and try a different one.
Here's another VPN question regarding VPNs. It was told that they're not created equal. I downloaded one on my computer and it caused various issues on my computer, so I had to uninstall it.
Yeah, and that's what I mean in terms of there's the variety, and then I haven't had any issues with the provider that I use, personally. But that's what I'm saying. If it didn't work, just delete that one like you did already and try a different one. See what other recommendations there are, and go from there. But there are some good free. If it's the free ones, they're just very limited in what they do. That's the only thing, so you just have to do your research on that.
Another interesting question. For the electronic recycling program for any outdated storage drive, how can you destroy the data before throwing them away?
Okay, yeah, okay. So I know obviously like companies, like larger companies, they will have like a shredder, a professional shredder where you will actually put that, but you and I'm not, I mean, I don't have a shredder personally to do that. At the very minimum, if I'm going to throw away a hard drive, which I haven't ever done yet, I would just remove all the information, first of all, right, off of it from there. But I'm not sure about the electronic, what was that law or
Okay. Years back, there was a company that I knew. I haven't been in touch with them lately, but the name of the company was called Shredding. And they would go to hospitals and destroy not only their paper records, but their electronics. Again, certainly more for a larger company. But
yeah.
I'm sure if someone would just search on the internet for data destruction, they may find some alternatives.
Yep.
Annette, would reformatting that hard drive before you get rid of it help in
Yeah, there are tools to change the data. I'm just saying that at the very minimum, if you're going to like throw it away, you can always just delete the information off of it first, just because that's just a simple select all and delete, right? So then therefore the hard drive is empty. There's nothing in there. And if you want to do additional formatting, you can definitely search, but
Okay.
Annette, there's a question here, just to repeat the link for haveibeenpawned.com.
Oh, yes. It's a pawn, it's a P-A, they spell it a little bit different. It's like P-A-W-N. Just search Have I Been Pawned? Cool, and it will pop up. And just save it.
All one word.
Yes, it's like an entire website. And then
There's
all
a
you do is
question
just put
about
in
if the
your
video is going to be shared, and it will. Can I be hacked by just opening a suspicious email, even if I don't click a link?
just by opening the email itself, the probabilities is a little bit low. If you click on any link or you click on the attachment, then the probability is much higher at that point in time.
And there's an attendee that's looking, had a couple of questions again about VPNs, but one question was, how do I think I have a VPN app on my computer. How do I find it to make sure that I still have it, or make sure that it's there?
Well, you should be able to, if you don't know if you have it, I obviously don't know the name of the VPN you downloaded, but you should be able to go to, your
Control panel.
settings within your local computer. So that way you can see all the apps that are installed in your computer and just try to search from there if you have it based on the name.
There have been some great questions. Again, I think the VPN one, we may need to follow up directly, but I'm going to ask a question of my own. We both have spent a good amount of time in the healthcare medical industry. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about some of the specific concerns for people working in healthcare with regard to cybersecurity?
Yeah, so obviously the healthcare industry is always a target for cyber attacks, particularly ransomware, and just getting people's information because it's health, right? So there's always a lot of information that's going through a lot of systems. So the health industry is always very cautious about where like personal identifiable information is being stored, is being moved, who has access to it. So just like we've talked about in the, in all the slides, all those concerns, they have it as well. So it's just that it's more because they're a target, a constant target for hackers. And also there's a lot more regulation from the FDA and, the government to make sure that, hospitals are compliant with things like HIPAA and all of those regulations as well. But the same concepts apply. That the ransomware, oh, somebody downloaded something that they were not supposed to. And now that malware is in there and it just spread, right? Or you have a disgruntled employee and they may have access that they weren't supposed to have, and then that's it. It's the same.
Thank you. We're going to get in a couple of more, we're heading towards the
Yeah.
top of the hour. Someone did share the link for haveibeenpawned.com. So anybody that needs it, it is in the Q&A. There's also a recommendation here that says deleting format doesn't completely destroy the data, only the file tables. You need to use a secure erase program, and you can Google free programs to do so. So that would be a good recommendation for anybody.
There's always the good thing about, the cyber things, that there's so many tools out there. I can't tell you whether it's from, fixing, updating, formatting your hard drive, fixing your files and stuff. A lot of times, if you have a problem, Google will always give you some tools to at least look at, right? But just remember as well, like if you have hard drive and you have information in there that you don't need to have in there, just delete it, as well.
There's another comment, about, deleting the hard drive, that it's not really erased until it's been overwritten. I would paste multiple copies of a large movie file. But it brings up an interesting point. There are hacker communities where information is shared, and it's been an ongoing battle. But a forum like this where we can engage with people that have specific recommendations or experiences of how to avoid hackers, I think is a valuable resource. And I know SCORE is happy to be able to organize a webinar where people can share these ideas, because it's a changing environment.
Yeah, technology changes all the time. And even when I talk about password, I mean, we're starting to talk about something called passwordless, technology, which isn't here quite yet, but because of all the issues around passwords, and cyber. So what we say now may not apply, or maybe change, whether it's because of a new tool or because of a new strategy, hackers and team have come up with, a month, 2 months, 3 months from now as well. So it's a changing environment. And there's just so many different, subdomains in there.
So Enid, many thanks from
thank
SCORE
you.
and from the community here. Again, just by the number of questions, I really think you hit the mark. But let me give you the floor for any closing remarks, and take it from there.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you all for spending your lunch with me. I truly appreciate it. As I said, I really hope that this webinar was just not so much eye-opening, but just allows you to really just think about, like, what am I doing? How is my data really safe? What can I do to prevent others from accessing my accounts? What can I do to make sure that I'm always operationally ready? And as you can see, a lot of these tools are typically free with the exception of a few, if you really want a really good one. So there's so many, YouTube videos on how to do things or the best way. So feel free, even with the hard drive one, I'm sure YouTube will give you the answer there, or some different way of doing things. So just spend some time, right? I just wanted to really increase your awareness on this because I just really hate to see, small business owners, like you and I, we're trying to do the best that we can to grow our business, to grow our customer base. And the last thing we want to really deal with is just somebody, taking our identity and stuff. So anyways, hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, that's my contact email. I'm on LinkedIn as well, or, or obviously the social media platforms. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.